Now, you know that I've been kind of railing against the ideological bent that seems to have captured the tech industry. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up 3 articles, and I'm not going to give my opinion on them. I am simply going to read them to you, and I'm going to allow you, as the viewer, to determine what you think. And then after I read the 3 articles, I'll give my opinion anyways. But first, let's just read them, and then I'll leave it up to an exercise for the chat viewers to kind of like, make up their minds about what's being said. All right. So let me pull this one up. Let's start with this one. So I'm just going to read these. Women and non-binary devs now make up 32% of all game developers, up from 24% in 2022. And this was written in January 22nd, 2025. This comes from a GDC State of the Game Industry report, which is a year-over-year report where they take surveys like this to understand the diversity makeup of companies, among other things, I believe. 32% of all game developers now identify as female or non-binary. You're going to have to just excuse the ads because I can't stop these. This is up 3%. Here, I'm going to try and zoom in a bit more. 3% when compared to last year's report and 8% when compared to 2022's. However, it suggests that women and non-binary developers are still slightly underrepresented when compared to their male counterparts. Males still make up 66% of all game developers. 24% identify as LGBTQ+. GDC's report finds that men still make up 66% of all game developers, down from 75% in 2020, a 9% decrease over the last 4 years. 66%, of course, still puts males in the majority. Alongside an increase in women and non-binary developers, the report found that almost a quarter of game developers, 24%, identified as LGBTQ+. This represents a 3% year-on-year increase. It found that almost half, 43%, of developers aged between 18 and 24 identify as LGBTQ+, with women far more likely to do so. In terms of ethnicity, the State of the Game Industry report found that 59% of developers were white, Caucasian, 10% were Hispanic, Latino, or of Spanish origin, and only 3% were Black, African, or Caribbean. This split meant that there was a slight increase in racial diversity at game studios, with the number of white Caucasian respondents down from 64%, but development houses were still predominantly staffed by the latter. The publishers of the report do note that due to the fact that the survey takes place in the United States, certain responses may not always represent the views of the global community at large. The culmination of the report showed that 35% of all respondents were white, male, and not part of the LGBTQ plus community. It shows that while strides have been made to diversify the industry, there is still a little way to go. Calls for broader diversity in the gaming space have been growing for several years now, and several prominent game developers and studios have spoken up about the issue. Last year, Tales of Kinzera, Zhao's director, Abu Bakr Salim, I believe is how it's pronounced, delivered a heartfelt message following racial abuse he'd received, saying that diverse games are for everyone, and CD Projekt Red's CEO recently rubbished claims that diversity hires were ruining the studio. But as support grows for these initiatives, so does discontent from a vocal minority. Okay. I'm just going to point to the history of recent games that have followed in the diversity as the primary means by which to create the game and promote the game and push things within the game. And I'm going to also point you to I believe it was the lead director of the Black Panther studio, who said that she was not going to hire anybody who was white. Let's continue. I think so far everything's been working well. Now this one I've read before, but I'm going to read it again because there are some people who still don't know that this exists. Let me just now you all know what Unreal Engine is, okay? And I see chat. Okay, I'm going to let chat keep going. You guys have fun over there. I'm just going to read these. I see chat, but that's fine. We'll let that go. So Unreal Engine is one of the biggest game engines in the industry. If you've played, pretty much take your pick of any like AAA title, and it's becoming more common among non-AAA titles as well, as like kind of like a catch-all engine. It's quite the engine, right? Everybody uses it. Now I want to direct your attention as just a follow-up to that last article and a lead into the next article about how Unreal Engine in its coding guidelines has inclusive word choice. We're going to read this a bit, just to remind everyone, to refresh everyone. When you work in the Unreal Engine code base, we encourage you to strive to use respectful, inclusive, and professional language. Word choice applies when you name classes, functions, data structures, types, variables, files and folders, and plugins. It applies when you write snippets of user-facing text for the UI, error messages, and notifications. It also applies when writing about code, such as in comments and change list descriptions. And so they talk about things like racial, ethnic, and religious inclusiveness. Do not use metaphors or similes that reinforce stereotypes. Examples include contrast black and white or blacklist and whitelist. Do not use words that refer to historical trauma or lived experience of discrimination. Examples include slave, master, and nuke. Gender inclusiveness. Refer to hypothetical people as they, them, and their, even in the singular. Refer to anything that is not a person as it and its. For example, a module, plugin, function, client, server, or any other software or hardware component. Do not assign a gender to anything that doesn't have one. Do not use collective nouns like guys that assume gender. Avoid colloquial phrases that contain arbitrary genders like a poor man's ex. Again, I just want to direct your attention to the fact that this is supposed to be literally how you code and name things within your code, okay? Remember that your words are being read by a global audience that may not share the same idioms and attitudes and who might not understand the same cultural references. Avoid slang and colloquialisms, even if you think they are funny or harmless. These may be hard to understand for people whose first language is not English and might not translate well. Do not use profanity. Overloaded words. Many terms that we use for their technical meanings also have other meanings outside of technology. Examples include abort, execute, or native. When you use words like these, always be precise and examine the context in which they appear. They then provide a word list. The following list identifies some terminology that we have used in the Unreal codebase in the past, but that we believe should be replaced with better alternatives. For example, blacklist should be replaced with deny list, block list, exclude list, avoid list, some other thing that I can't really scroll over to here, unapproved list, forbidden list, and permission list. Whitelist should include allow list, include list, trust list, safe list, prefer list, approve list, and permission list. That's what you should use instead of whitelist. Instead of master, you should use primary, source, controller, template, reference, main, leader, original, and base. And instead of slave, you should use secondary, replica, agent, follower, worker, cluster node, locked, linked, and synchronized. And then they go into portable C++ code, which is the real offensive part of this article, okay? All right. So you have Unreal Engine here providing guidelines on exactly how you should code, or at the very least, how you should name your code and how you should think about your code. And then I see today from the GNOME X11, GNOME blog about X11. So let's skip over to this one. Rust in peace. And this comes from blogs.gnome.org/ALATIERA. You can go and check it out for yourself right now. Already, we have a connection to Rust because, as I've said before, Rust is captured by this ideology. On X11 and the fascists maggots. I know, dear reader, I know. 2 weeks ago, I published a blog post about the upcoming plans of GNOME 49 and the eventual removal of the X11 session. Since then, I've had lots of feedback, and we've had to deal with the following, and I'm not exaggerating one bit. Fascists and Nazis. Wild conspiracy theories that make QAnon jealous. Concerned trolling about the accessibility of the Wayland session. Or Wayland, whatever, however you want to pronounce that. A culture war where Wayland is gay and X11 is the glorious past they stole from you. I could never have dreamed any of this up. And then he talks about Palestine, which I will not get into here. He excessively, political. This is nothing new. It's been going on for years, and nobody pays any attention to these shuncasts. These kind of people are not even worth our spit. However, people that should know better were very happy to indulge and uncritically report on the latest made-up story that lionizes an actual, this word, and World War II revisionist, transphobe, 9/11 truther nutjob with main character syndrome, whose main claim to fame is being yelled at by Linus for spouting anti-cough rhetoric in the Linux kernel mailing list. And this goes to, I believe it's Lunduke. I believe that's who they're attacking in this case. They were eager to legitimize conspiracy theories, spread further misinformation, and amplified harassment campaigns spearheaded by fascist idiots. Then he goes on to talk about fascist slimes that take advantage and radicalize people solely for clicks. And then he says, to all you wannabe influencers, content creators, YouTubers, bloggers, and freeloading leeches, if you are harboring fascist maggots for clicks, views, and your personal gain, you are worse than them in my eyes. You have no excuse. There is no both-siding fascism. You can't say you didn't know. We've all been screaming about it. You deserve each other, and to spend your life surrounded by the filth you promote and legitimize. I hope you all will take a look in the mirror one day and try to atone for your sins and the damage you caused to the society. If nothing else, do this for selfish reasons, as we'd all rather keep writing software that you can talk about, rather than having to deal with the fascist trash you cultivate and send our ways. On behalf of all the desktop developers, I have to state the following. There is no place for fascists within the open source and free software communities or the society at large. You will never fester your poisonous roots here. Go back to the cave you crawled out from, where no sunlight can reach. And then you just have to scroll down a little bit. Just scroll down a little bit on this page, right? Let's just scroll. Oh, it's this. Right, I do have to self-censor a bit because there's a bigger message than just the terms. So there you go. Wayland is not only gay, Xorg is trans. Tell me again that this industry is not captured by ideology. I dare you. As a matter of fact, I triple doggy dare you. You are all fascist maggots. Every single one of you. And these kinds of ideas, the tone policing of words, the implication about racial groups not being represented enough, about the diversity of, whatever you like, gender background, whatever you want to call it, it's extremely loaded language, and it's loaded like this on purpose. All you have to do is look at the political landscape and map the language to how it's being used in literally every other use of it. It's loaded on purpose in order to push a particular ideology and make you think a certain way, and, et cetera, et cetera. You add in all the baggage that comes with this ideology. But when it comes to programming, when it comes to code and how that code runs on a piece of hardware, the only thing that matters is the laws of logic, how fast it is, how efficient it is, and how secure it is. That's pretty much it. You can be anyone who believes anything. And if you write banger code, that's the only thing we really care about. However, tech has been turned into an ideological battleground. And the battleground is because people know that technology and software is an extremely powerful tool to manipulate people. And I've been covering articles like that very recently. For example, on I think it was just the one yesterday, actually. We covered the Geppetto one, where even just search engine advertisements are enough to bias the things that you're seeing. Yes, we sit on top of an extremely dangerous tool. Everyone knows this, and so they use ideological capture on all sides. Everyone wants to use it. Let's be real here. All sides want to use it. And therefore, you have this kind of stuff.